A very common word used in Hebrew. Matter of fact, whenever you talk about something in the past tense, you actually don't have to utilize this verb here. You can actually understand that the context is past tense, and so therefore you don't have to say he was here and continue that as if to say that the word was is going to be utilized. It's very different, you know. The was, and we use it in English, we use it very liberally when we're talking about time. In Hebrew, you're very specific when you're referring to haya in regard to time. So when you're saying like he was here, you're being very specific when you said haya. It's not common. When you say something in the past, normally it's like you could say Benhu, you know, which is a son he was, or Huish, he was a man. Notice I didn't say was using the word haya. So this is something that we would find that it's more common. You would find that the statement of was, or something past tense wise, is normally going to be assumed in a sentence rather than identified like this. The next we're going to find is the root ein, sin, hey, which is to do, perform, did, made. The next word after that is going to be the word Elohim. I'm not going to write it. This is just a word that just means God in Hebrew. It's written in the plural form, and therefore we're going to talk about, when we get to that thing in the book, we'll talk about that. But it's not ever regarded in its pronoun state, or it's not pronoun, but excuse me, proper noun state. It's not regarded as a plural entity. It's regarded as a single entity. The word Elohim can also be used as a regular noun, which is like for, you know, deities or gods. Like if other nations had things that they worshipped, it can be used as a regular noun. In Hebrew, if we write God's name, this is what we always do. We write a kaf here instead of a hey, so it's Elohim. So that's a way of getting around the fact of not writing God's name. Because I want you to remember this, okay, the word Elohim, okay, is a proper noun. And when you use it as referring to plural, you know, things like deities, okay, that's when it just functions as an actual noun in itself, okay. So when it's used in its normal form, it's always used as a proper noun. When it's used in a common form, then it's only used as a noun, and that's when it's referring to false worship of gods, okay. Number 13 is going to be the root bet, vav, aleph, which means to come, arrive, enter, okay? So, or it also can mean to leave, but it's not leave as in like he left, it's leave as in like to, the word like, see the word in Hebrew, the word like ba Hashemesh means the going of the sun, which means the departure, okay? So, but leave, if we were to use leave in the correct term, this would be used with a different verb, like literally means to go away from, where this doesn't mean to go away from, it just means to depart, which is kind of hard to explain in an English form, because when you think of depart, you just think of something that's leaving, okay, where it's more of like Boaz and just like, I don't know, going from, in a sense, okay. There's a better word for leave, trust me. The word azav is the word for leave, and we have another word that's used for leave, yatsa, which means to go out. So just kind of put that in your head when you're thinking about this. Next, let's go through number 14. Remember, we got 50 words, so we're going through the whole vocabulary here. So, melech. What is melech? Melech is the word that comes from malach, which means to rule. So this would be a ruler, a king, one in authority. Okay, authority. There we go. One in authority. So you have to think of, don't get so narrow-minded when you think of the word melech, okay? Don't have to write the word king all the time, okay? Just think of melech, because it comes from the malach, which means to rule, okay? Or to have ruleship. So you're thinking of melech as really, remember it's all, Hebrew is very conceptual. So we're talking about somebody who is in authority, one in authority, okay? Number 15. This is the noun Israel. So Israel is a proper noun. So this is a definite, object if you want to focus on that. 16. We get the word eretz. Eretz means land, as in a massive land area. Also, it's the word for world, such as the earth, okay? You can put also earth here. Also, land, when you're talking about eretz, you can refer to a country as the eretz, the land, like I said, massive landmass, okay? 17 is the word for yom, which is the word for day, okay? Or you can put it as to daytime, or you could say probably the best ones, day or daytime, probably the best for using for the word yom. Number 18, we have the word ish, the word for man. Now, one thing I want you to understand this and stuff is every single noun here that's not proper is always indefinite. So you can literally translate ish properly as a man, okay? Because we don't put indefinite articles because they don't exist in Hebrew. So every noun by itself, if it's not definite, which we're going to learn about that, it's going to be regarded as a. So you could say a land, a ruler, a man, all that is going to be with regard to that. Number 19 is panim. Which is the word for face. Or you could say the presence or appearance. And notice the word plural is, face is plural, which is, kind of seems weird in a sense, but face here is, even though we think of it as a single object, in Hebrew, it's looked at as a plural object with regard to this. Now let's go to number 20. We're almost halfway done. So in number 20 we have the word bait, which is for house, home. Specifically it's a structure, if you want to understand that, okay, bait. Okay? 21 is now the root nun, tav, nun, which means to give. There is another meaning by which natan is used, and I'm going to write that as a separate root so we can kind of separate, because you're not going to understand how these can work together. And that's the fact that this can use for permit, or to put or set. 23. So even though this is like 21, you know, you're gonna have to look at it as like two separate things. The next one is which is a word for people or collective group with you can look at it as a collective group with similar identification. So because when you talk about you're talking about a group that has the same standards, the same morals, the same beliefs. That's what an is. 24, we have the word yad. Which is a word for hand or arm. When it talks about, for example, yad, this is what we're talking about the hand. Sometimes the Torah utilizes the arm as a euphemism with the word for yad. So now we get halfway through. So now we get to halach, which means to walk, go. That's pretty much it. I'll use just that because I was thinking of something else. So walk or go is for halach. Okay, to walk on foot or to go somewhere. You also can say move. To move forward. Okay. 26 is the word davar. Davar means something said, okay? A lot of times they translate it as word. It's very difficult to help people understand this. It doesn't mean word like as in a word like, bites a word. It doesn't mean word as in that. It's not an individual word. The word refers to something being said. And so you need to know this. If you're going to ever utilize the translation for word, you always have to remember it's referring to something that was said or something that was communicated, okay? So just remember that the word davar means something that's been communicated, some kind of information that was given. It has nothing to do with like an actual meaning for what the word. The word word in Hebrew is milah. That's where we get the word word. Okay? So now we're almost halfway done. So number 26, we have the word who, which is the word for he in Hebrew. 27, we have resh, aleph, hey, which means to see or perceive. So resh, aleph, hey, to see or perceive. 28 is the word ad, as far as until, okay? Ad is used in relationship to distance, okay? So when we see ad, we have to think of it as distance or as an aspect of time, okay? So 29 is the word av. This is the word for father. And the word av comes from the root aleph bet hey, which means to submit. So literally the word av means one you submit to. Alright? So 30 is the root shen, mem, Ein. And this means to listen or hear. And the word Shema has also within it the meaning of to understand. And there's another word that literally means to understand, but like when you say, Ata Shamati, did you listen? Which means, it's the same thing we use in English. Are you listening to me? Are you hearing what I'm saying? That's the concept that I'm talking about. So 31, we have the word Dalid, Bet, Resh, which is to speak. Okay? That's where you get the word Davar from. It's from the word to speak. 32 is the word Ze, which is the word for this. It's the pronoun that describes things, alright? It's where we get that relative pronoun, Ze, this. Okay? Number 33. You have the word city, ear. Now what's special about the word ear is actually it comes from the root Ein Vavresh. Ein Vavresh literally means to hear a large commotion or to get excited up. So it's the whole concept of a city has nothing to do with like how we define it like in English. In English, everything's about just defining and putting some kind of like descriptive thing of something. In Hebrew, it's about what is the concept of what happens, what is it, what's the characteristics of the place. So it's where you find a lot of commotion. So therefore we find the word ear is why we get the word city in Hebrew. One thing you're going to find, which is so beautiful about Hebrew as opposed to English, is Hebrew makes sense. Everything is connected to a meaning. Where in English, the only thing that makes sense is when you get into Latin. And that's the sad part. So the word Yud Shin Bet means to, I'll put it here, to sit, dwell or stay. $35. This is the word I told you about earlier. Yatzah means to go out, depart, leave, okay? 36 is the proper noun. David, so we got David. Alright, 37. We got another root here. Shuv means to return back to where one was. Okay? To say return, it's not right. We have the word hazar, which means to return. Here the word shuv always is talking about where someone was and now he's going back to where he was. That's where shuv refers to. So you're only going to see the word shuv used when someone was at a place and now he's going back to the place that he was. That's where you're going to find this word from. 38 is the word hine, which is an interjection meaning behold. Very old word. Matter of fact, this is something that we don't really use in English anymore. It's one of those sad things because what does behold mean? It's always referring to when you're trying to get somebody's attention and you want them to think about what you're about to say and what's so important about what's been said. So next we have 39, which is the word im, which is the word for with. Now I want to teach you something about this word. Im, there's another one that's just like it's called et. Im means with, but disconnected. What does that mean? In but disconnected. Okay? It means that if you, let's say, you had a bunch of people with you in a car, and you were taking them to school, but not all of them were going to go with you to hang out, to be with you. Matter of fact, one kid was just, he needed a ride just to get to school. That person was considered in. He was with you in the car, okay? But he wasn't with you, as in, like, his intent wasn't to be with you, to hang with you, to go places with you, to do stuff with you, okay? So this is like when we typically talk about the general sense of with, Yes, I'm at the store and my daughter is with me, okay? But why is my daughter with me? Maybe my daughter doesn't want to be at the store to sit there and do what I'm doing. Maybe her desire is for some other thing. So that's why we use im as a generic thing. When we want to get very specific about something that the Bible wants to teach about, something that's showing it that there's a disconnection, this is the word we're going to find. Whereas when we find the connection source, we're going to see that the word et will be utilized. And we'll see that later when we get to that. Now we have the next one, which is the root lakach, which means to take. And lakach is just by itself, it just means to take. Alright? So here we have, this is our 40, and we got 10 more to get to. So we get to our 50 vocabulary words. So 41. Echad. Okay? What is echad? Echad is the word for one. Okay? This is an adjective. Okay? And it's used to describe unity at times when it talks about a people, like an am echad, one people. Let's go number 42. Now we got 42. We have the word yada, which means to know. And to know, it can refer to know something intimately, like this person left and right, you know everything about this person. It can mean to know is to have knowledge of, to have to know about what's going on, okay? And also to know is used as a euphemism as well. Now im, now we have im with the aleph, and this one means if. Im with an aleph means if. Next one we have is ein lamed hey, which means to ascend or to move upward. Okay? Next word we have is 45. And here in 45 we have the word shana. Shana is the word for year. .46 is the word Shem. And Shem is the word for name. 47, we have the word ani, which is the word for I, and myself, ani. And then we have 48. And in 48 we have the word ein, which is the word for I, also the word for spring. Okay? And then lastly, we're getting to our last moments here. 49. We have the word shalach, which is a word to send. And then last one, 50. To die. The word mem vav tav, to die. Alright? And so this is our 50 words of vocabulary. And this incorporates all of the things that we have been looking at, that we'll be going through from lessons 1 through 8. These are all the 50 words. And I suggest, for those people who really want to learn, this is a very cheap book. It costs like maybe 27 bucks or so. But this is the book we're going to be going through. Alright, it's the Biblical Hebrew and Text and Workbook. But I'm going to be going through it a very different way. Because there's a lot of stuff in there that are just too difficult to understand if you're trying to read it by yourself, because there's not a lot of explanations, and you got to get the explanations. Plus, the way they go about it, I don't think is really correct. So we're going to go about it differently. We're going to go about it in a whole different pace. We're going to use the vocabulary, and we're going to create sentences and go through them and learn about everything we need to know about these things for Biblical Hebrew. Alright? So, now that we got through the most tedious part, which was getting our vocabulary, now we're going to go through the part by which we're going to now learn Lesson 1, in which here in Lesson 1 we're actually going to go through and learn about utilizing things in Hebrew. So this segment we're going to talk about, which is going to cover Lesson 1, we're going to talk about the issue which I went over earlier, which is the issue of verb and subject agreement. Alright, verb and subject agreement. Remember in the beginning of the video, I shared with you about the fact that whenever it comes to verbs, we have to have the understanding of who is the subject. Alright? Is the subject an I, a you, a he, a she, a they, a we? That's the first thing we want to identify. What's the subject? Okay? And when we utilize our verb chart, which I'm going to focus on first, okay, the verb chart is going to tell me exactly who it is that I'm going to be focusing on. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to grab something. Oops. So let's focus on some parts here. I want you to see that you can do this. This is quite easy with relationship to this. This is a booklet I created, okay, by which I just laminated the pages, and as you can see, you can look at the charts here, and you can see the chart up front, and you can see here, and you see the empty spaces, and you can see this is what your regular chart's going to look like. It's going to look like this over here, and this is your example chart to give you an idea of what you're going to be doing. So in here, I want you to think about the fact of, what's the subject? The subject first is going to be, who is it? So if I use the verb chart, so let's go back to the verb chart here, okay? If I use the verb chart and I said, okay, I'm going to use I. This is the past tense form. And here's the future form, alright? So we'll write the future and we'll write the past tense, okay? And we'll put it on the board, alright? So here, we're going to have the word I. So we're going to say, okay, Ektov, okay? This is what we're going to talk about. We're talking about I, the subject, alright? So here's my subject pronoun, I. And of course, right here, this is my verb. Alright? So my subject pronoun is always, in the future tense, on top. Just like I see here. Alright? So my subject pronoun here is right here in the front. And I know that this is I, because when I go back to my chart, right? When I go back to here, I see right here, there it is, I. Okay? Now I know it's not listed on here, I, but if you followed the first part of the video, if you need to go back to the video and go back to the beginning and fill it out for yourself, I'd do so. I didn't have a lot of ability to fill that stuff out here like I could have, but either way, it doesn't matter because, you know, if you go through and you follow the video and stuff, you can see what I'm talking about here. I might update it, I don't know, just depends. It's a lot of work to get these things, but anyways, the good thing about it is it's free. You can go through it and you can learn these things. So here we're going to look at this. So I, ektov, I, ketov. Alright, so we know, like I said earlier, the word kaf, tav, bet means to write. Right? Okay. So ektov, we know that this ek is always going to be I will. Why? Because I know it's future tense. Okay? Future tense will mean that I have to put I will, and then the next thing is the word for write. Okay? I will write. If I have a verb and a subject, and the subject is going to be about a person, okay? I have a few ways of doing things. First and foremost, let's say my person is going to be Moshe, alright? Let's say Moshe is my subject, alright? And Moshe, he's going to say something, okay? So here, we're looking at the fact that Moshe is a third person, he's masculine, and he's singular, okay? If Moshe wants to speak about himself, he's going to have to use the first person, I, okay? If Moshe speaks about himself in the third person, he's going to have to use the he form, okay? If Moshe is the one that another person is talking to, then you're going to use the you person, okay? So let's begin with one of the vocabulary words that we're going to find here. I use the word David because David's the vocabulary word that's used. And let's also use, here we go, we're going to say David. So here